Saudi Arabia is fully entitled to defend itself, and it's fully entitled to call on its friends for help in so doing. Saudi Arabia is a key partner of ours, an enormously important trading partner, a commercial partner, but also a defence partner. We share intelligence with Saudi Arabia.
In fact, 48% of UK arms exports go to Saudi Arabia. It's the single biggest buyer of UK arms. £2.3 billion worth of arms have been sold to Saudi Arabia since the start of the war in Yemen, which was just 2 years ago. And of course, Yemen does border Saudi Arabia, and the Saudis have repeatedly said that towns and villages along the border have been bombed by Houthi rebels. And one of the other things that Fallon was pointing out during that interview is that every arms export application is carefully examined by the relevant authorities, and that the criteria that is applied to those applications are some of the toughest in the world. But those criteria don't appear to include whether the country involved is using controversial cluster munitions, because here is a Saudi official admitting that they do.
It has become apparent that there was limited use by the coalition of the UK-manufactured cluster munition in Yemen.
Now, those cluster munitions were sold by the UK to the Saudis back in the 1980s, which is long before the UK signed this convention which essentially bans cluster munitions. That wasn't until 2008. But still, many are asking why the UK continues to sell any weaponry at all to a country that it knows is using these banned weapons, banned because they cause too much collateral damage. And those people, of course, include the UK's opposition Labour Party, whose election manifesto was leaked to the media last night. In that manifesto, it says that the Labour Party would ban arms exports to Saudi Arabia until they can carry out an investigation into how those weapons are being used in Yemen.
Commentator Catherine Shagdam. Catherine, good to have you back on RT. I suppose an ally defending an ally is no surprise, but are you surprised at just how robust Sir Michael was about it?
Well, no, not really, to be fair with you. But to be perfectly honest, I think that Mr. Fallon's logic doesn't hold here. Because Saudi Arabia, we need to remember, back in March 2015, declared war on Yemen, not the other way around. Therefore, you can't really argue the fact that Saudi Arabia is trying to defend its border. What it has done is unilaterally attacked another country for no good reason, other than trying to impose its own political agenda onto Yemen to try to forward its own narrative and own agenda for the region altogether. So you can't turn around then when the resistance movements in fact defend its own borders and its own sovereignty, and indeed attack Saudi Arabia where it hurts because it has the right to self-defense, and then argue again self-defense. It doesn't work this way. You cannot be together the one that attacks first and the one that defends. Because if the rules of engagement are broken in that it was illegal to declare war in Yemen in the first place, then I would say that Riyadh has to expect for the resistance movement in Yemen to defend themselves and their country however they see fit. Because in fact, there's a huge coalition, carpet bombing actually their country, and actually trying to suffocate the people under a humanitarian blockade. So I would say that the rules do not apply anymore when it comes to self-defense as far as Saudi Arabia is concerned, because it is the one power that has attacked.
Saudi Arabia has admitted to using cluster bombs in Yemen, munitions that are now banned under international law. I think it's important to point out that these were weapons manufactured before 2008 when the rules changed. Why do you think Britain then still continues to support Saudi Arabia with such vehemence when cluster bombs are being used?
Well, I think there's two main reasons. The first one I would say is geopolitics, and Saudi Arabia remains a key ally when it comes to the Middle East and the greater Middle East, and beyond that, the Islamic world. And I think that Britain understands that it has a front in Riyadh, and that as long as Riyadh is behaving, or at least not doing the kind of things that Britain cannot really sanction anymore, then they're going to stick by Riyadh and just go along with everything. And the second element is of course money. Britain has made billions of dollars on the back of the Yemeni war, and I don't think that a lot of British officials care very much about Yemeni blood and how many innocent kids are actually being killed or starved to death, because as long as Riyadh is signing those checks and buying off Britain's military equipment and expertise, then they're quite happy to go along with it. Especially now that the Brexit thing is happening, they need to be making money, in some way. And I think that war is a really good way of, inflating those bottom lines. And I think that when it comes down to it, I don't think that human rights hold. I don't think that democracy matters anymore. All they care about is making money, and the war complex is making them billions of dollars. So of course they're making the argument, trying to rationalize war, trying to say that it's legal, trying to play, with words and treaties and agreements, saying that it was sold before there was any legislation passed on cluster munitions and whatnot. But technically speaking, we're arguing technicalities here. When it comes to human life, I would like to think that people agree that cluster munitions are an abomination, full stop. And I don't think that time should apply here.
OK. For now, Middle East political commentator Catherine Shagdam, really appreciate your thoughts on RT. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
About what they said would be the unintended consequences. Some of the recruited veterans said Saudi Arabia's government was largely paying for the effort, worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Congress voted overwhelmingly for the law in September, overriding a veto by President Barack Obama. The law gives the right to sue any foreign country found to support a terrorist attack that kills U.S. citizens on American soil. The veterans' lobbying effort began within a month after the vote. Soon, some 70 subcontractors were hired by a Washington-based lobbying and public relations firm that represents Saudi Arabia. 15 of the 19 September 11 hijackers were Saudis. Joining us via Skype from London to discuss this further is political commentator Saeed Shahabi. Many thanks for joining us here on Press TV, Mr. Shahabi. Now, first of all, I'd like to get your initial reaction to this, how Saudi Arabia is trying to exert political influence in different ways to ensure that its name does not get connected to the 9/11 attacks.
Thank you very much. Of course, people were surprised to see that the bill at the Congress was passed last September, which allowed American families to sue the Saudis for what happened to their loved children who were killed in 9/11. Now, it is clearly that what is called the JASTA bill had given the people the right and the chance to sue for compensation. But the Saudis were very, very angry because they know that this is a big negative step against their interest, especially in America. And they, since then, and of course before that, for the past since 1945, when they had the relations with the Americans established during the King Abdulaziz and Roosevelt, they wanted to influence the the American policies towards their regime. So they have employed many companies, many PR companies. They are functioning now. Now they are trying to reverse the decision, the just decision. But whether they will be able to do that or not, I don't think they will, because it is a very sensitive issue.
Right, considering that, Mr. Shahabi, as you've mentioned, Saudi Arabia is going to continue using different methods to cover up its role in, for example, the 9/11 attacks. However, as the days pass and looking at the situation in the Middle East, it's becoming clearer for most across the world of Saudi Arabia's role in supporting the Takfiri brand that is the ideology which drives groups like Al-Qaeda and Daesh.
Well, I don't think there is anybody in his sensible mind, in his or her sensible mind, would believe that the Saudis would stop financing these Takfiri groups or would give away their Wahhabi brand of ideological discourse. I don't think they will ever do that, because they know this is a weapon. Terrorism is a weapon in their hands against their enemies, against their competitors. Money is a weapon, oil money, and also, of course, the Takfiri Wahhabi ideologies that are influencing many people in the Western countries. So I don't think they will ever stop doing that. Now, the Americans know that. The British, the Europeans, they are aware that the Saudis, the only two weapons in their hands that is supporting them and assisting them is the oil petrodollars and this Wahhabi ideology that leads eventually to terrorism. And the problem is that the West does not have the will to stand up to the Saudis. And there are many journalists, even those veterans in the United States who have been recruited to lobby on behalf of the Saudis, are annoyed that they were used without their knowledge, according to some of them, to lobby against the just bill, law, and that they would not, they say, some of them said they would not go and support or defend those who have supported terrorists to kill Americans, meaning the Saudis. But the Saudis still have the money, and this money, as we know that President Trump is going to Saudi Arabia, but before he goes, the Saudis have said that they are going to sign multi-billion dollar worth of contracts with them, and they need a lot of support from these PR firms in the United States in order to enable Mr. Trump to sign such big deals. So they are buying the whole world with money. The world is being silenced by the Saudi petrodollars. Unfortunately, we are living in a world which is hypocritical and also has no principles, and that loves money too much, even if it means that it has to sacrifice its values and principles.
All right, let's leave it there for now. That's political commentator Saeed Shahabi joining us via Skype from London. Mr. Shahabi, it's always good to have you with us here on Press TV.